Foster Dad Directive Podcast. My name is Charles. Today we are going to be talking about should LGBTQ families be able to adopt or foster children. I'm doing this one not only because it's Pride Month, but also because it's been in the news recently that one of the major agencies has decided to move away from allowing this. And since not only am I a foster parent, I also was partially raised by my aunt who is gay. And so I wanted to go over this and go over my personal relationship to it, my connection, everything. Uh, Also, if you have a differing viewpoint on this, please reach out. I'd love to talk it over with you. You're never going to be degraded based on your viewpoint, but also come in with solutions to the problem. Don't just come in trying to say that it's bad based on just a Bible. I understand that you may not agree with it, but also please come in with some solutions, because just saying that it's bad because of moral or personal beliefs, I mean, really doesn't solve the issue. So I want like backup on statistics and things such as that. So, as always, please know that I'm not a trained professional. The views expressed on this podcast are mine, and they should not constitute professional advice unless otherwise stated. Please ensure you seek adequate and effective legal counsel to best protect yourself in this ever changing environment, especially outside of the state of Michigan. So, updates, none really. We had a few foster kids we were going to provide respite for, but never ended up panning out. They ended up having other places to go. So, that never took place. We still moving toward adoption. Thankfully got the kids up to date on everything, getting them into occupational therapy, speech therapy. They're currently in therapy, getting different medications to try for ADHD and other things such as that, trying to get them caught up in terms of school, doing different things to actually help them, such as working on penmanship, spelling, working on letters. So I bought like different books such as that, reading this little book about adoption. I'll have to do a short little episode on it. It's very cute and kind of goes over a lot of important things on what not to say around a child, such as not talking down about their parents because they might take it as a personal hit towards themselves, and that if you're talking down about their biological parents, that you're talking down about them because they are a piece of their parents no matter what. So that was a book that was suggested in the trauma assessment, so I need to go over the trauma assessment as well. But trying to get back caught up on episodes, the life just loves to get chaotic sometimes, and I'm just trying to get back into being comfortable with doing all this. I had recorded this episode before, but I didn't like the way it turned out. I had too much of like a personal side view on it, so I'm not streaming this one. Plus, I got distracted. I'm trying to stream, and then the noises that come through for like Twitch and getting messages just kind of startled me. So, gonna have to turn the volume off next time. So, I'm just running through this one solo and trying to get my information out there. Uh, I do have a few different resources. I looked at a few different places. I'm going to go over my own personal experience. So, with the topic of should LGBTQ families be able to foster or adopt? And my answer flat out is going to be yes, because we are already get constant messages about how the foster care system is overwhelmed. There's not enough families. Why would you take a family who passes all the checks, gets passed on everything, goes through all the work to become a family or adopt? If you go through a private adoption, they're so pricey. From what I was seeing, Cassie's parents were going to adopt at one time, and it was $10,000, and that was years ago. From what I was looking, I think I went over it in one of the past episodes where it was 10,000 as on the low scale. It was more like 40,000 for a private adoption of an infant. And then if you go through one of the children in Michigan on Mare, I can't remember, Michigan Adoption Resource Exchange, I believe is what it's called. I need to do an episode on it. It's where a lot of the kids in foster care are placed so you can see them, you can meet with the children, you can go to different events. But those children also have a lot of past trauma, so those adoptions are generally, from last I knew, you just paid to change the birth certificate. So if a same-sex couple, trans couple are going to go through all that stuff to get a child, they should be allowed to, because honestly, from everything I've seen, when you look at a foster kid, they I've I haven't met one yet that said they were taken from a LGBTQ couple, that their LGBTQ family lost their rights to them. It's always been straight couples. I've met horrific uh, opposite gender couples in the foster care system that are essentially horrific to the children. One of the fosters we had, actually two of them were, the first one which I've talked about, the forced abortion one, and the other one where one of the kids we had was actually locked in a, I think it was a garage or a cage, and they weren't fed. They were forced to exercise. It was just horrific conditions. That was an opposite gendered couple. There have been reports of, I know there was one, I can't remember exactly what city he lived in, but he had children who were nonverbal, and then he was doing horrific things to them, ended up having a heart attack or a stroke, I believe, in commission of these acts to these poor children, and that was a opposite gendered couple. So there is nothing that I have ever seen in my personal time that shows that LGBTQ families are any sort of hazard to children. I did find an article from the Williams Institute, UCLA. It's a little bit dated, it's 2020, but it says same sex parents are 7 times more likely to adopt or raise foster children than the opposite gendered counterparts. Sorry, I had done all this the other day, but we took a vacation, so I am trying to read through it a little bit again. There's an estimated 114,000 same sex couples that are raising children, including 28,000 male same sex and 86,000 female same sex. Same sex couples raising children are 7 times more likely to be raising adopted or foster children than their different sex counterparts. I don't know why I said seven. I apologize. No, that's seven again. So sorry. I repeated that. The children of LGBTQ parents fare as well as children of non LGBTQ parents. Nearly 20% of all youth in foster care in Los Angeles are LGBTQ. I mean, even for us, we've had two that were out of 10, which is that 20%. There's That's twice the number of LGBTQ youth than living outside of the foster care, and then LGBTQ youth had higher number of foster care placements and were more likely to be living in group homes. And then there is challenging to find permanent homes for these youth, just because not many people know a lot about, especially like transgender. That's something I don't know a whole lot about. I went over them resources, but outside of that, I don't know a ton about how to care properly for a transgendered youth. There's so much that goes into it. There's so much trauma they've been through. They might not be comfortable sharing with their family that they're transgender. They might not, even if they're gay or lesbian, they might not have told anybody that. So they try to hide that, I mean, in most parts, because a foster family might find that out and then send them somewhere else. So there's a lot of that goes into this. And while this might not be countrywide, because I know one part of it talked about Los Angeles and another one talked about Philadelphia, I know from my experience the numbers kind of match up in terms of youth with what we've experienced. And it says there are 3 million LGBTQ adults are religious, reporting that religion is an important factor of their life. So I always find it hard to take the whole that the Bible doesn't like gays. Um, Honestly, in terms of that, abortion, stuff similar to that, I've always taken that I may not agree with some of the stuff, but it's not up to me to judge said person on what they do. Because if some woman has an abortion, say I don't agree with it, and then I make her life on this earth miserable, and then she goes up to meet our maker and then has to also explain to them, it's not really fair that they had to make a super hard decision on what to do and then get hassled for it and then also have to speak to our creator and then explain it to them and also end up spending an eternity also having to live out that punishment. But I also worked in a prison and was a corrections officer and did not punish the guys there because they had already been punished. It's not my job to punish anyone on this earth. I'm not in a place to punish anyone. I have all my own faults and I have to live with my own stuff every day. And I know what a toll it takes on me, and I could not make a decision like that. But this also isn't about abortion. So I just wanted to go over that. And in my experience, if you were able to catch gay or trans, I would have caught it by now. I was raised partially by an aunt who is a lesbian, always been a lesbian her entire life. My uncle is gay. I've spent years upon years around him. I He had a girlfriend for a while and it was just a cover for being gay, and she even knew that when they were dating because she could see all the signs were there. I've had transgendered friends. I had one transgender friend take their own life because of all the stress that they were under and just how they'd given up on their situation because they were in a domestic violence situation and could not seem to find a way out of it, and no matter what they did, I guess they just felt that it wasn't making any progress, and they felt that that was the only solution to take. So LGBTQ people already take a whole bunch of added trauma in this world, and I know it doesn't mean much coming from a guy who looks like me, because I can tell you I've never really questioned my sexuality. I can admit when a guy is good looking and not have weird feelings or feel like I'm demasculating myself. Honestly, it's just one of those things where I don't understand why we can't just be respectful to each other. And I get that it may, based on religious viewpoints, you, you may have different feelings about a situation based on that, but also it takes minimal effort to just let somebody be, because you can't change everything in the world. You should live your own life based upon your beliefs, and if you don't want to associate with people based on those beliefs, then don't. But you also cannot change everything that's happening in the world. You should be looking out for what's best with children, especially in the foster care system. So many of these children have been through numerous homes. I'd have to look up the statistics, but most of the kids we've had have been through multiple homes with parents who aren't trained properly, who don't have the patience, who have situations come up, say they want to have their own biological child like I've gone through in the past, and they want to move out of foster care, being a foster parent, or they don't have the patience for it, or they get a child who has high needs and high react re, react reactory. I can't remember what it is, but it's when they have like high responses to different events and then they become combative, violent, cussing, stuff like that. So if a LGBTQ family is willing to go through all the garbage that we've had to go through and want to treat a child with love and support, I mean, even outside of my aunt, I always think of the uh, good lord, it's not Arrested Development, Modern Family, with the couple on there that adopt a baby. And if somebody's willing to go through all that work and all that stress and all that heartbreak, because we've in the children we've wanted to adopt numerous of them and it just hasn't worked out due to the trauma, and there's so much heartbreak, the two younger kids that we had last that went to be with family, and saying goodbye to them and still, thinking about them. Denying LGBTQ families from fostering and adopting, especially from the traumatic side of things, to where, sorry if you see me touch my face a lot, my facial hair, my razor has been dead, and so I'm driving me insane. But you're not stopping them from anything intense. You're not. I don't know really how to put this. All you are doing is you are actually protecting them from the emotional side of things, because you're denying them that is their emotional response based on different your different beliefs, and then it's preventing them from going in and caring for a child and having to go through the whole process of that child going back to live with family, not adoption's not working out. What you're doing is you're preventing children who could have had a loving family and potentially throwing them back into a system that is already a nightmare on both ends for foster kids and families. It's just one of those things where there is so much trauma. I've seen so many different things happen. There's a book actually where I'm writing up the questions for, because I finished reading it and it was insanely well done. I loved so much of it that goes over the different trauma and explains kind of some of the traumas that children have been through that you would not even begin to think of. And so I want to get the author on here and go over that. But denying LGBTQ families this opportunity just does more harm than good. And without a valid alternative, and group homes isn't a good one. Taking funding or trying to throw just money at it's not really a good one, because once money starts getting involved, then it becomes harder too, because then you're going to get people in there that don't want children to be loving, caring parents. They want them for that money. And I've seen that. And so that's why when I say if you want to come on and talk about it and see why, if you think they shouldn't be and you have a valid reason and you can give me different alternatives that are feasible, that you can articulate well and just kind of explain, then I'm more than happy to talk about it. But as of like right now, from every news article I've seen, all it's doing is taking families that would be caring, loving parents and taking them away. Because I know my aunt did so much for me when I was a kid, ended up taking me fishing, teaching me a whole bunch of different stuff, made me into the person I am today, made me respectful, taught me a whole bunch of different things, was a very attentive person. She cared about me so much, did so much for me, does so much with my nephews, my my foster kids. She's always been loving and caring to them, and there's nothing that would make me think that she wouldn't be an amazing parent full time if she wanted that. She helped raise her now wife's daughter and ended up doing an amazing job with that. So I ended up also looking through different resources. I kind of wanted to find some that weren't just articles based on different things, that were just scholarly articles. I also ended up diving into Reddit a little bit. I wanted to look into there and checked out a bunch of different resources. And Reddit, there was it was a one that somebody was asking. They said, change my opinion, I don't believe that LGBTQ families should be able to foster and adopt. And so many of the responses were so good. They go over things such as LGBTQ couples are wanting to adopt and foster these parentheses unwanted children. They're That's why they're up for adoption in the first place. A biological family may not be the best option statistically, but it stands to reason most of these biological families contain unwanted children. Then we need to see the homosexual adoption versus heterosexual adoption statistics. If you're going to say that homosexual couples aren't good parents, where are the statistics behind it? Because from I apologize, but they said that the statistics, most of what I saw were they were quoting articles and then saying that supported LGBTQ families as possible foster adoptions, but they were also the only argument they had was they weren't correct statistically, which doesn't really fully support the entire argument that they wouldn't be good families. It just their main argument was that the statistics stating that LGBTQ families would be good for fostering adoption weren't correct. So, and then other people were stating the alternative is that more children are forced to stay in the foster care system because we were putting limits on who can or can't adopt than there already are, which you have to jump through a lot of hoops to become a foster parent, as I've explained in my different episodes. I agree that there should be this is this person's post. I agree that there should be limits on who can or can't adopt, but there are less heterosexual couples who would be perfect fits for adopted children than there are children available to be adopted. If the parents had if the parents have time for the child and have the means to support the child, then we shouldn't force the child to stay in foster care opposed to having parents just because these parents are same sex, which I completely agree on. There are so many children in foster care. If you cut out, say, 100 parents just because they are LGBTQ, you're throwing 100 kids back into foster homes that may already be crowded and cramped and up to maximum size. You are putting these kids into residential homes, which are not loving and caring facilities. It is more of we need to house kids. The foster kids we've had that have been to them have not enjoyed them. They do work on some of the behaviors and trauma that they have, but also are essentially like jails. And then a lot of people talked about this person. You compare gay families to normal families, don't but you don't typically adopt someone and take them from a normal household, which is what they're saying is LGBTQ families fostering adopting aren't stealing kids away from straight families. They are taking kids who are already up for adoption and fostering and helping give those kids a relatively normal life, especially with just a difference in gay rights that have come about and how gay families can be happier and do far more normal things together because they're not hiding in the shadows and trying to hide their true selves. I think if a lot more people just were their true selves and stopped questioning like if some of the feelings or thoughts that they have are completely bad just because it's like a gay thought, and instead of shoving it deep down, question it and looked into it and said, why am I feeling this way? I think the world would be a little bit more comfortable for everyone because if you looked into why you're feeling a certain way instead of just trying to destroy that emotion, it just becomes toxic. I mean, look at all the politicians that championed against gay rights and then come to find out were closeted and doing things that were in that same field that they were targeting. So, and then they do go over a lot of the statistics about how adopted families being adopted by straight parents, comparing them to the ones of gay parents, and then you'll probably find that they're pretty consistent because it's not a problem of gay households, it's a problem of families not sticking together. That's a sometimes the reason that kids come into foster care is because they only have a single family household, and that family or that parent, that single mother is trying to do the best they can sometimes, or just don't even care and they're not doing the best they can and they're falling to drug addiction, and you're taking children from a LGBTQ family just because you don't believe in that concept, but you don't realize these kids would give so much to be with any type of loving, supporting system, and then are having that taken away just because it's not a a belief, something that aligns with your beliefs. And then a lot of other people went over that about how a lot of kids would probably give anything for two dads or two moms over having no one at all. There were multiple people that says if like I would have taken a gay family over having nobody, and then there was one where the mom was resentful because the one of the children was was the result of being assaulted, and the held out that resentment even though trying to raise that child, but passed on that resentment and anger towards that child. So I honestly, that's one of the huge reasons. I know it's Reddit and things can be made up, but it also goes to show a lot of things that I don't think a lot of people consider. And then if you're also basing it solely on the Bible and that, you also have to remember what other things are you not following in the Bible. If you are nitpicking this one, are you doing things where you're wearing mixed fabric clothing? Are you eating pork? Are you using things that would be considered magic? Are you doing these other things where you're working on Sunday? Are you doing things that technically are in the Bible and are stated as wrong, but in the same part of the Bible as being gay, and you're just ignoring it? So if you are, why are those different things okay compared to this? I'm pretty new to the Bible. I carried one when I was deployed in the military. So I tried to look through it a little bit. So I am a little bit off on all this. I don't fully know, but how do you rate them? How are they rated? If you want to come on here and tell me that, I would gladly listen. I am back into reading the Bible. I know my stepdad got me one, so I am back into reading it. It is slow going because I am reading parenting books as well, which is a little bit cumbersome, especially with trying to be a parent and working and trying to maintain a house. So it's slow going, but the Bible does interest me, and believe I am, I would say agnostic because I do believe that there is a God, but I don't know what truly to fully believe in because to my knowledge, the Bible was translated by wealthy, powerful white guys to control the populace. So I do question it sometimes, even though I do believe a good portion of it. So if you have more knowledge on it, I'd love to have you come in and talk too. And there's other things to consider. I mean, the purpose of foster care and adoption is to find loving family for neglected children. And all restricting LGBTQ families from doing is removing that. You're furthering the shortage of foster and adoptive families and not really given any alternative. There's been so many restrictions on LGBTQ adoption and fostering, and it hasn't seemed to work out. I mean, we moved forward into allowing them to foster and adopt, and unless you have solid evidence showing that they were neglectful based on anything other than, from what I saw, it was to move back to our values, is what they said, which doesn't really state that they were negligent or subpar parents. It just shows that it's based off this faith again. And then child safety, stability, and permanency. Most of these kids lacked that with their biological families, and that's the reason they were taken. And unless you're showing that LGBTQ families are also doing this, you're taking them out of a safe home with stability and permanency and throwing them back into a system that I can tell you is a big revolving door for some of these kids. I have gotten so many emails and phone calls about some of the same kids. I mean, there's one that we are taking, one of the transgender ones, who keeps going through the revolving door, and we keep getting emails and texts about taking him back, even though it wouldn't be right, just because the two we had did not get along with him. And the reason he left wasn't we chose these two over him. It was because we want multiple kids, and then he would have been better in a single kid household, and just had so many different things that he needed to work on that was not going to be properly done while here, just based off the amount of work it was going to take. And then, so us not choosing to care for him was never about his LGBTQ status or being transgender. It was more about our long term stability as a household and what we wanted and what we knew was not going to be positive for him, just because the two kids we have did not really want, they didn't not want him around. They wanted to know him, but he absolutely refused to have anything to do with them and was rude to them, and just, it was a giant mess. And it was better for him to try to find somewhere that was a better environment for him to, come figures things out with being transgender. That was pretty new to him from our understanding, and he deserved to be able to have the time and resources to figure that out. Plus, the way he talked to me, I mean, I had to drop him off early at therapy one day, and he went off on me, blowing up my phone about how dare I drop him off at therapy early. So it honestly just wasn't a good fit, and it was definitely not because of being transgender. We've never had any kid leave for that reason, and never would. Honestly, we're always there to support anything, because I've had friends in pretty much every category of the LGBTQ scale, so we're always welcoming and open to that. And honestly, one of the big things is the importance of loving and supportive homes. No one's going to know this more than LGBTQ families, because they've sometimes missed out on that and been traumatized by parents who did not agree with them, with their I air quotes choices, but how how they are and their LGBTQ status. And then honestly, I find it also hard to get behind the religious aspect of it and moral objections, just due to things such as the unwed mother homes in the UK, orphan trains, the different things that these religious organizations and the government have done to children in the past. It's kind of hard to be sympathetic to, you want your religious and moral objections taken seriously, but you've also shown in the past you don't exactly have a great track record for treating these children with love and support. And I get it's different times trying different things, but also a lot of them, especially if you look into the unwed mother homes, absolutely horrific. Some of the things that have been done in the name of religion, which is, I fully respect everybody's religion and to do it. And I know no one alive today was part of any of that, but that's why I always ask, just be respectful of other people, because not every aspect of our society is 100% clean. And there's so much more that you can go over. I've I've had so much experience and interaction with people from the LGBTQ community, between my aunt and uncle, and being amazing and loving relatives, and seeing my grandpa, who was a Vietnam vet, and treat his kids with love and respect, even though back at that time would have been absolutely out of the ordinary. No one would have faulted him for being that machismo type of guy who would came back from Vietnam, and then his children came out to him, and no one would have faulted him at that time, but he still loved all of his children, treated them with respect, cared for them. He was one of the greatest men I knew, and he passed actually last year at the end of Veterans Day week. And so if you're when you're considering this question, just remember to think about the human aspect of it. And if if you can't agree with it for moral or religious objections, just what are your alternatives? You can't say we shouldn't have these individuals because of this, but I don't have any other resource. That's why the abortion argument's always been hard for me to get on board with, because what is the alternative with these children that you are keeping around and forcing these mothers to have? Granted, it was a choice to have them in some cases, but they're most likely going to end up in the foster care system. So how are how are you going to counteract that abortion mandate and also making sure that these children are loved and cared for? Because not everyone's a great parent. I've seen, I mean, we've had 10 kids, so that's in a two sibling group. So that means there were 8 different parent sets that let their children go. And I cannot even imagine that. We only had the toddler and his brother for less than 2 years, and it still takes a toll on me. And he's been gone for 7 months. So, honestly, what's your view on it? If you want to come on, I'd love to hear from you. Please just remember to think about it as your fellow humans, even if you don't agree with what they have or what's going on in their life. Just to remember that they are people too. I think that's a lot of the reason of what we forget in this world is that the person you are hating on is still a person. I mean, unless they're abusing their significant other, children, animals, doing stuff that is super, super horrific, you can respect them and take time out of your day to kind of get to know them. So, as always, thank you so much for listening. Uh, if you are LGBTQ, just know that you are loved. There's somebody out there that loves you, and if not, you always have a place here. You don't shouldn't have to hide who you are. I was listening to other podcasts this month about LGBTQ people and everything they've gone through, and you shouldn't have to hide yourself. You, as long as you're not doing anything wrong and you're not harming yourself, others, and you just want to find that bond and connection with another person, go for it. You deserve to be find that happiness and love and affection that everyone else seeks out. Well, especially a lot of the hateful people that want to stomp on LGBTQ couples but then want to go home to a significant other and have that love and affection, or kids. So, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, and share. You can email me at fosterdaddirective@gmail.com if you want to come on here and talk. If you support the LGBTQ couples or you're against it, and please come on. I'm more than happy to chat. Um, you can email me with any feedback, ideas, or stories. I'd love to hear from you. I do appreciate everyone. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.